Aw, yes. It's that time once again. Hello to another Pirate Broadcast! Starring me, your host, PoGokeRo. Hello, America. And with me today, in another dimension, or I guess, is my co-host, or my guest, the Roguish Bard.
Trying to hire me or something? Hi!
Hey, there she is. Hey, what's up? So yeah, welcome to the show.
I was going to answer your question with a lot is up, it seems.
Oh gosh. So already we know that the Proud Boys have made clear their intention to appear at in Portland on August 17th. This is coming, I think, Saturday. And every time they show up, they just cause problems. That's what they come up for, is just to cause problems.
Okay, I have not heard about this, but it makes me very relieved that my get together with some friends is actual, because they're not in Portland, but they're really close to Portland. It's not until the 18th, so hopefully all that chaos will have dispersed by the time I'm even in that area. But
Yeah.
I kind of feel really bad because I grew up there, and I'm starting to feel really bad for Portland because it's starting to feel like it's been deemed, well, not going back to its origins, but just in the last, maybe 20, 30 years, it's been kind of like this area known for being so progressive and so open and alternative and artsy and all these things. And now I feel like maybe when it started getting a little more publicity, some people started going, yeah, but it used to be this mecca for white supremacists. And then a bunch of white supremacists were like, oh, well, we need to go ahead and try and claim it back. And it seems like that's what's happening now, is there's just all these people, these hate groups and white supremacists and nationalists that are just like, well, we tried it once, let's try it again. And it's just no, not that I want them to be able to gather at all, but I think there are some places out there that are way closer to reaching their goal than Portland, Oregon is right now. So they just leave Portland, Oregon alone.
Yeah, no, they're here to cause problems, to, yeah, like you said, to quote retake Portland in the name of white supremacy. Nah, that's lame. They're not wanted.
Yeah, and not only that, what was it? I had a friend that was mentioning that he keeps getting all this harassment back at him because he'll say something about how, for instance, I mean, I'm not going to name him or anything like that because I don't think
This person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he even has a username, but I'm not going to put it out there.
Okay.
But he mentioned that in a comment section somewhere on Twitter, he had mentioned that, these white supremacists and these Nazis are, with very little room to argue, are going to be right wing.
Yeah.
And somebody got super offended, and I just kind of talking to him, I'm like, well, what they probably thought was that you're trying to say that right wing people in general are Nazis. And it's no, all Nazis are most likely right wing, but
no, all Nazis are right wing.
They are. I just hate I just always hate using the definitive. Oh, it comes from just teachers and things like that
Okay,
growing
but
up.
no,
People are always like,
but that's
but
the
they
thing.
are.
That's the thing.
Um,
Fascism is on the right.
yeah, they can't be on the liberal side. You're not like this is what I told him.
Well,
Like
no, you have
you can't be.
authoritarianism, which is different than fascism. They're both, you know, they're both. I mean, they kind of all blend together. I mean, you can't have liberal totalitarianism.
Well, the way I put it to him is,
Well,
I
like, it's
don't
not
think
really
there are.
liberal. It's neoliberal.
Yeah. What I told him was that I don't think you can have somebody who's like, I don't like people of color, but I'm gonna go march in pride. And I told him that that is different than, for instance, a gay person being racist. There can be a gay person who is a racist, but they're not gonna be like, let's reinstate, gas chambers.
I don't know.
Those things
Hate
are too.
hate is an
Those
ugly thing.
But I mean, as far as like, I feel like it's too far. Like when there's that much hate, it goes across the board. I think there's very little hate that does not start to spread across the groups. Once they start, focusing in on this group, then they just kind of let it spread out to the other group. I don't feel like there can be the minimalist, hate where it's like, I am a bigot towards this group. But when you're starting to talk about like white supremacists also are going to most likely hate gay people. They're most likely going to hate. They're most like most of those men are probably going to hate women.
Yeah, dude, that's what it is. It's hate. That's the whole point. That is fascism. It's hate.
Yeah.
It's not at all rational. There's no reason involved whatsoever. It's all pure hate.
And that's why I was saying that, yeah, it's not unfair to say that they're going to be more on the conservative right wing side of things, because there's too much in the liberal progressive zone that's going to be working against them.
I don't know. I mean, here's how I see it. I mean, I look at World War II, World War I and World War II as a transition from the old feudal society to the capitalist society. It was a changing of the guards, I guess, the elites, because Europe was all feudal, serfs and whatnot, and that's what did everything. So, sorry, I'm like running at the same time. There you go. Trying to think and play at the same time. So yeah, but like the old order didn't just leave, like the knights or the kings and the lords and stuff. They didn't just leave willingly. It was like pretty rough transition. So yeah, what was going to replace feudalism? Like, how are we going to order this? Because capitalism creates a whole bunch of surplus. So the question was, how do you distribute this surplus? And fascism says, well, you set up this pyramid and you send it all up to the top. And socialism says, well, you let the people figure it out, and you distribute it amongst the people. You don't concentrate it. So those two ideas are fundamentally incompatible. Like, there's no way it could work out. So yeah, the World War I was like the shaking out of like the monarchies, I guess. The Ottoman Empire. What other? Not really shaking out of. I don't know. I'm blabbering here. But But yeah, but then yeah, it came down to it. How are you going to distribute all this surplus? Do you hoard it, or do you distribute it amongst the people? You can't have the two ideas exist at once. It just doesn't work out. So in the United States, we had the Civil War, which was a fight between two ruling classes, which was the northern industrialist capitalists and the southern plantation owners. And that power structure was different. Their power structure, was more like aristocracy, and not necessarily the northern power structure, which is money, capital. So yeah, those two didn't work out too good. They had a fight, but then they reconciled. Well, no, there was a coup. I told you this, didn't I? The coup part, the end of the Civil War. The North.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, the North defeated the South militarily and occupied its territory, but the South staged a coup and assassinated the executive and replaced the executive with one of their guys. That guy was Andrew Johnson, and he was like one vote short of being removed from office. Because he was a Southern apologist. He protected the South from all the reforms that the North wanted to impose upon them. So, because he saved the Southern culture and the Southern power structure, it was able to regenerate really easily and adapt to its new environment. So the war continued, but it was a Cold War. It was a war over control of the federal government. And that all was all crazy. I can't really explain it until we get to modern times, when I guess it was Johnson had the civil rights movement, and that's when all the Dixiecrats, which were the Southern racist Democrats, because of the civil rights movement that Johnson imposed, they all left the Democratic Party and joined the Republican Party. That's when the parties flipped. That's when that's when it started becoming more separated. But it still wasn't that separated, really. Not like now. Now it's crazy. Wow.
Okay.
So let me tie that all together. So yeah, the World War II was fascism sprung up. It was like, we're gonna do it, fascism, and it sprung up everywhere. It was trying to spring up here in the United States. You can look up photos of the Nazi parade they had in Times Square. There were and still are American Nazis. They tried to get Nazism over here. And the response to that, the Communist Party here in the United States had its platform, which was the opposite. Which was like, instead of giving all this wealth to the rich, why don't we use the government to help out these starving people? So Johnson was like, hey, or not Johnson, what's his name? Roosevelt. FDR's like, hey, that's great. Those are great ideas. I'm going to take those. And said, hey, listen to me. I'm going to use these ideas. Check this out. And the people are like, yeah. And so they elected him. And then he instituted the New Deal, which was a whole bunch of reforms. We got a Social Security, national parks. Oh, man, a whole bunch of stuff. Public works projects. He employed artists, everyone. He employed everyone. It was great. But yeah, and so that was an example of socialism.
Yeah, I think this was starting with the idea of two conflicting points of view and people trying to say that they can possibly trying to deny that they're a part of, or deny that even another group is a part of something, by bringing up the opposing. So saying,
Hmm?
well, no, like you can't say that Nazis are all right wing, but you can, because why? Like, why would any of them
By
want to
definition,
identify?
they are. That's
Yeah, but
that's
like,
what a
why would they
Nazi
want?
is.
But I mean, why would any of them even want to identify as being on the left? There's nothing appealing to that core ideology that the left would suit them.
No, because
Like
because
a
they're into
person, but I mean, like
authority.
a
They're
person
into
can't say,
authoritarianism.
yeah,
That's
because
why
I'm just saying,
Trump is buddy with Kim, because Kim, they're technically socialist communists, right? In North Korea, technically, but really they're just like authoritarian bastards. And Trump loves authoritarianism. That's what he wants. He wants to be able to rule his people with an iron fist. He doesn't
I don't
want
even
this
think he,
democracy.
yeah,
He wants ultimate power.
I was gonna say, I don't even think he goes as deep as the authoritarianism. I think he wants to be a dictator.
Yeah, that's the the power. That's what.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think he's thinking politically like, oh, this is the kind of regime this is. I think he doesn't care what our system is.
No,
I think he just wants to be the dictator of our system.
well, he wants to emulate them. That's why he loves all the dictators and he shuns all the democracies. So
Yeah, but I mean, not
he's a
all
fascist.
dictatorships are communist. Like, he just likes that level of,
Well,
you can't take my power away. I get to say and do whatever I want,
yeah,
and then the rest of the government can just be my enforcers.
yeah. Well, that's kind of what he's implying already. He's already
Yeah,
talking about like how he might serve extra terms. He might serve 3 or 4 terms, may not leave or whatever. And really, he can't leave because the moment he leaves, he's under arrest. He's indicted. He's going to prison. So he's incentivized not to leave. Like
yeah.
we
No,
gave him a reason
I
to
mean,
cause problems.
I've thought about that. My thing is that, one, I think, unless the thing is that if anybody else, even in his party, were to support that, they would also be supporting them never being in his position. And I think there's enough of them that still want to have his position that they will not back him trying to make any changes like that.
No, I don't know. I almost think they're all in. Do you listen to the way that GOP senators talk? They're all in because
I mean, yes, they all are so behind him, but I really still think that a lot of that is because they want his
power.
donation. No, I think they want his donation when he's out of. They're throw the criminal charges out. We're not looking at those right now. Those will happen once he's out of office, but just throw those out of the hypothetical right now. When most of them, I feel, are betting that when he is out of office, he will turn around and he will throw his money at them for being his loyal supporter through his presidency. They don't realize that that's not the kind of man he is, but I think that's what they're hoping for. And I think some of them are hoping that, well, when it comes my time, then I'll be able to get all the supporters that he got when he ran. And so I think some of them are like, they're just throwing down, hoping that they'll get the same supporters, that he'll be willing to donate to their campaign, blah blah blah. They're like thinking of him as like their cash cow, and they don't realize he doesn't actually have any loyalty to the party. He really wanted to win, but once he did win, I think he looked at everything and went, huh, well, now I think I see what I can do now. I'm gonna work with this, but I don't think he actually anticipated winning. Um,
Yeah, well, I have that picture, right, of him. Like he looks like, oh crap, what have I gotten myself into?
well, a little bit that, but also, I mean, I can understand. So, actually, just going off a little bit, I did learn this past weekend that some people I know, and I think I might have brought them up last time I was on. I learned definitively they admitted to other family members that they had voted for him strictly because they hated Hillary so much. And I felt like telling this person, drive me over to your family's house. I want to like no, but like I want to like scream in their faces because you had other choices. I mean, if
Yeah,
anything, that would have been like the only time I would have said, maybe you just don't vote. Like if you don't really like this person but you hate this person, maybe you just don't vote. But deep down, my suggestion to them would have been, you had Johnson. Like, I didn't like Johnson, but you had Johnson as an option. He maybe wouldn't have been everything you were looking for, but was Trump actually everything you were looking for? No, because everything. The thing is everything they were looking for was just not Hillary. So if you were just not Hillary,
then
you
so
had three,
then it's
you had three
they're
other
not being honest
people
with you.
that were on the main on the main election stage that you could have chosen from.
Yeah, they're not being
No,
honest.
yeah, it's like no, you had you. Some people will say, well, Jill Stein was a throwaway vote. Gary Johnson was a throwaway vote.
But it
To
wasn't a
me,
Trump vote.
that's the thing. It's like, unless you actually supported Trump, you could have voted for one of them without voting for Hillary. That's the thing. You're still casting a vote. By you casting your vote to Trump, that means you support Trump. Just
Yes.
admit it.
Yes.
And so that was like a frustrating thing. And these are like people I see pretty often, and I'm like, it starts making you think like, well, then what do they think of me?
No, see, you're different, right? Because they know you. You're not like them.
Sadly,
See, that's how
sadly,
they do it. That's how come
sadly,
you can expose
I
them and
think
they can like rationalize it.
sadly that is actually what I've started to pick up on, is that like I am the exception.
Hmm.
And I don't like that. Like some people go like, well, like some people will say like affirmative action is, like people love having the affirmative action that gets them something that they haven't earned, that's not
They just say
theirs. And I'm
that.
like, no.
Yeah.
Like if I were to ever find out that I was hired off of affirmative action, it would upset me to no end, because that is devaluing my actual qualification.
Hmm.
Like, I want people to look at my qualifications and go, yes, you are the person we want, versus going, you're going to make us look better than we have previously.
Yeah. Not about you.
Because
It's about.
yeah, because physically you represent something that we seem to be lacking in our environment here. Because I still look around my current employment, I still look around and I kind of go, was I? Because you guys don't seem to have very diverse hires. You guys don't even seem to have very diverse internships. I'm concerned. And it really concerns me when I sometimes like kind of like, I'll be like, well, here's something that I think might make my job easier, like not just my personal job, but like my position. And
Mm.
so everybody who also has my position, I'm like, here's something that I think might make things easier. No, we're not going to change anything. You're not even going to want to like talk about why this might be difficult and how this might be something worth looking into. It's just about, we don't want to change anything. And then, getting overly dramatic about it, then my head goes, what else don't you want to change? What else don't you want to examine, how something is done or how diverse something might be? Or, because then extending it to myself, it's like, was I your last major like shift to the system? Because I seem to be the only thing that's different around here. Um, and then some people go like, I had something come up recently where it's like, well, don't you want to work around a lot of women? And I'm like, I work around a lot of women. Trust me, that doesn't actually always like that's not like a solution to things. Like being a woman working around a bunch of women is not like the solution. Like if I feel like an outsider, I can still feel like an outsider around a lot of women. Because I've actually had that like promoted to me, like, maybe like, oh, here's something you might consider, applying to. It's a office with a lot of women, majority women. I'm like, well, I'm already in one, and trust me, they still find ways to make you feel like an outsider, even when you share the same gender. Um, but
Well,
that's a side thing. But yeah, so I hate when people. Part of me feels like, why can't people at least admit that they feel a certain way? I mean, it's really weird because we have this issue of, like you're saying, up in Portland, we have like this issue where there's a lot of people who are really open about how they feel. They want to spread their hate. And then
yeah,
we have
that's the point.
other people and then we have other people who are deep down giving those people like not necessarily incentive, like they're emboldening those people. They're giving them the leeway to even do those things. And then they sit back and they act like complaining about immigrants isn't the same as what those people are doing. But it's like it's all tied together. You're not assaulting people, no, but you're in support of the ideology of the same people who are like assaulting people. So you're just passive about it. That's the only thing that distinguishes you, really. Like if you are voting for the same person to be in power to make the same decisions, but, well, I never punched, a Mexican person. Okay, good for you. I mean, that shouldn't be like the
Like
standard of,
the
well,
bare
I'm not
minimum.
a bigot.
Yeah. Like,
It's like, well,
you
you
want to be
still think
rewarded for like what you're supposed to do? That's what you're supposed to do.
exactly. And so, yeah, no, it kind of concerns me that, like, and the thing is, I am a firm believer. I don't know if you would really agree with this, but I am a firm believer of when a person just seems to be really ignorant, I will show them the utmost patience to kind of work through, like, okay, so what is it that you don't know or you don't see, or
Yeah,
what
I've
what
tried
is it?
that. A lot of people.
I mean, it really depends. Like, if they're really aggressive from the get-go, they're probably already too far gone. But I
Yeah.
have had like groups of people where, like, some of the people were my friends and some of the people I was just getting to know. And I've had like those people I was getting to know ask some really ignorant questions of me, or like make some really ignorant assumptions of me. And I try not to get like offended and defensive and angry at them. And I just go, oh, well, I don't know who you've met, but I'm not like that, or I don't think that way, or I've never done that. So, I mean, maybe there's some other people, but not me. and I identify as part of that group that you think is like that. So, and I know that sometimes that might lead into the whole exception thing, but I try to make it not like, well, I might be the only person that doesn't do that. I just try to present like, hey, you think all people of this group are like that, but I'll at least present you an example of somebody who doesn't. So maybe you can think a little bit harder on how you perceive people. And I've found, I've made like a really good friend. He's an oddball, but I've made a really good friend that he's asked me some things that's like, in PC culture, you would not want somebody to just ask you. Like, I mean, like once he asked me what Ebonics was, or why, why it was called Ebonics, and and I'll like joke like, "Well, you think I know Ebonics?" And it's like, and I eventually explained like where the name came from. So it's like, but that doesn't mean I speak it. And that's a really
I
small
took
example.
a class about this, and yeah, the teacher was all about it. The professor
loved using it.
Well, no, that it was like a legitimate, real thing. It was a African American vernacular. They like.
I know it's a real. I know it's a quote unquote real thing. It's condensing slang and suggesting that only black people use this particular slang. But I mean, why does it have to be Ebonics if other people have
I don't know where
adopted it
Ebonics
too?
came from, but like the speech patterns are legitimate. It's just another dialect, and yeah, trying to delegitimize it is awful. By saying that yeah, it's not a legitimate. Well, it's like racist to be like, oh yeah, it's not a legitimate way of talking. No, they talk just fine. Just they can code switch too. Like that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
They're not dumb. It's not like.
I thought you were like saying that it's racist to question like the labeling of Ebonics, because I don't like that it has been like, this is the the Black American way of speaking. It's like, well, maybe the majority of those who speak in those patterns are Black Americans, but what does that matter? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's very conflicting, and I'm probably not the best person to even argue about it. I feel like it was a way of degrading the speech of a lot of Black people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's one thing to kind of talk about it as like, oh, culturally, look at how a lot of Black Americans started to speak and certain slang that they use. It's another to be like, they're basically not using English.
Yeah,
It's Ebonics. It's like, that's where I don't like.
So, yeah, I didn't even realize that hip hop. So here's how ignorant I was. I didn't even realize that hip hop was anything other than gangsters talking about how rich they were and killing people. I believed it because I didn't listen to it back then. At least I didn't know I was listening to it, and And like, yeah, I didn't. Or actually, no, I didn't. I wasn't even listening. I mean, maybe might have heard whatever little bubble one that might have come up eventually to the
Oh
pop.
no.
But yeah, I didn't know anything about hip hop until I took this class, and then I'm like, all right, fine, I'll sit down and like listen to music, and I started listening to like the lyrics, and I'm like, oh hey, if you listen to the lyrics of these people, it's like pretty cool stuff.
Yeah,
then,
like original hip hop. I mean, some of it is like so wholesome.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's still, I mean, there's a lot of good hip hop out there, like that, even wholesome
yeah.
hip hop. But like, then you start learning to
even
decipher.
but-
Yeah, then you start learning to decipher what's being said, because it starts becoming poetry. You start seeing all the ways that a word can mean different things. The same word can mean different things. Yeah.
I mean, the way I like to look at, I mean, yes, there is a lot of different hip hop, especially today, but to generalize it, the way I kind of like to look at hip hop is it's beat poetry with a beat, like with an actual soundtrack.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, the beats are great, and it's not hip hop. Isn't just the beats. It's also the oh, that's what I forgot. A cactus. Oh.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Beat poetry with a soundtrack, because I think if you were to actually measure it down, I feel that there would actually be less of it. I mean, the popular stuff definitely, but I feel like overall there'd be very small portion of it that was superficial. Look at me, look at what I have. And I think a greater portion of it, if you were to consider even smaller artists, would actually be trying to speak on something a little less superficial than that. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. Like, a little less superficial than that.
Huh?
They would talk about stuff a little less superficial, or... Nah.
Yeah, like I'm saying I think the majority of hip hop is deeper than money, women, drugs. Look at me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I can't say what it is, but I know it's out there. I mean, there's one song by 8-Point Agenda featuring Latyrix. Herbalizer featuring Latyrix. And that song is like so great that I like memorized it. Like the whole thing, it's done by 2 people, but I just memorized it.
Nice.
Because it's such a great like battle, not even battle, but like it's just like a wholesome, awesome, just awesome. It's just awesome.
So
then,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So, but like I found that one later, but let me stop and think. Stop building and like talk. No, hip hop. I mean, it wasn't until I took this class that I realized that I had broken my preconceptions of what hip hop was. It's basically a Black American art. And I mean, yeah, there's white contributors too, right? But like, yeah, a lot of it comes from Black Americans, the culture, and
yeah.
And I didn't know how great it was because I had been conditioned by, I don't know, media, I guess, because my parents didn't really talk about it, so it must have been the media. Because where else would I get it? I was a kid growing up. Where else would it come from? My parents didn't tell me anything. They weren't overtly racist, but yeah, I must have heard the news and I associated it with, associated the two unconsciously until I took this class and listened to it. And I'm like, wow, and had to dispel all my preconceived notions. So yeah, I guess it happens. I mean, people don't know. Yeah. So those. Yeah. So okay, at the time of this, I haven't checked the news, but what was going down was what do you use this packed ice? Why not?
The shooting.
Was a mass shooting.
Yeah.
In Philadelphia.
Yeah. Last I checked, there were no there were injuries, but there's
no fatalities. But he's not out yet. He's still shooting. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the last I heard, right? That was like before we went on.
Yeah. Now the cynicism that I am seeing out there, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. Like, I don't want to minimize what those officers are dealing with. But there are a lot of cynical ideas being thrown out there.
What do you mean cynical ideas?
I was just getting to them. That are bringing up the Epstein situation.
Epstein?
And saying, yeah, well, they're saying don't let more gun violence distract you from this other issue, and the fact that he was like going through his trial was possibly going to expose a lot of other people in very powerful political
Oh
positions.
yeah, dude. Did you hear? Like, that's the other thing. Some prince, some English prince dude is like, oh yeah, I'm retiring from public life.
The thing is that what kind of concerns me is I also saw something earlier today where a guy was talking. They were bringing back up Michael Jackson, and that made me start thinking just about like how, we've had a lot of assault allegations and shame being put out there, but just the scope of how much of it also has to do with young people to children, and how many different areas it's happening. Like, it's not, I mean, people can say, oh, it's Hollywood, and people can say, oh, it's politics, and it's like, no, it's just all of it. It's anybody who has like this level of power, then that group that they belong to, there's going to be those people. Like, I actually heard a quote that I absolutely loved earlier that said that power, that the saying that power corrupts, money corrupts, but this person was saying what it really is that power reveals. It reveals what somebody really wants to do, because now that they have that power, they have a better chance of, one, being able to do it, and two, if it's not something that really they should be doing, actually getting away with it. And there's this disgusting thing going on where, I mean, I'm happy we're able to see it. We're actually able to have it revealed to us that there's just all these people in powerful positions that are using it to abuse other people, whether it's kids or adults, but they're using it to abuse people. And it's just scary. And what's scary is that when they're already in power, they can manipulate the information. They can manipulate it being put out there. Like, once somebody gets accidentally exposed, all the people who knew about it or were associated with it, start playing the defense, and we may not get to find out about all of them that we should. Um, but a lot of people were starting to feel like all this gun violence, just the timing of it. And I always hate this, but I can also see why people would think this, that it's just hitting in a way. Especially, I do feel a little suspect about that guy who just went up to Walmart and then was immediately like stopped, and it was right after the actual shootings where people were killed, people were hurt. I felt like that guy, not that he wasn't still a threat, but that he was more about trying to make a point.
I don't know if no. I think that guy really was like just crazy.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's crazy, but I think in his crazy mind, he was just trying to make a point. He was just trying to say, "Hey, look, I can walk up to a Walmart and I have my, and I'm all geared up, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything." Like, because that was the guy, that was the second guy that he never even got a chance to do anything.
See, there's too many guys, dude. I don't know anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing. I had that situation with a friend of mine. I'm like, "Did you hear about the guy at Walmart that it was an off-duty fireman that stopped him?" And my friend's like, "No, that guy, he shot a whole bunch of people." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no. This is another incident at a Walmart." Which is really
Yeah.
sad to not even have a week between having to say that. Like, it's one thing when it's like, oh, a couple of weeks down the line, like, "Oh, no, no, this is another incident at this, specific situation, scenario, location." No, it wasn't even a week later. Like, a guy, he geared up, he had an assault rifle, and I guess he entered a Walmart, and I don't know, they don't really talk too much about what he might have done or could have done, but a off-duty fireman was there and stopped him. And it's like, part of me is like, well, was this, I don't know, it just felt too much like, oh, so a guy came in, kind of showed that he could have his weapon and not hurt anybody. And then we have this man who's off duty, so he is technically a civilian at that moment, who was able to stop him, and I think he did have a firearm. So we also have the good guy with a gun thing happening. And all in all, we got to kind of show,
But it wasn't the gun that saved him. Was it?
No, he didn't shoot the guy.
Yeah.
I think he held him up. I think I think he might have
arrested him or whatever.
I think he might have made basically a citizen's arrest of him, or he might have detained him for authorities to come in. I only saw like a little clip where the guy had his hands up. But just all in all, it felt like the timing to even test this out, even if you are somebody who's just like, "Hey, I just want to show that I have my weapon and I'm not out to hurt anybody." Like, even to try and make that point so soon is completely inappropriate. But it and I hate if he had actually hurt anybody, which thank God he didn't, but it just felt very staged to me. It made me very...
No, he's flexing his white privilege.
Yeah.
Actually, you probably couldn't even see his skin color. I bet. Wasn't he so geared up that you couldn't see his skin color?
No, he was white. Because the thing is, think about. I forget where it happened, but think about that. If you haven't heard about this, but there was an incident at a mall where a black security guard tried to approach the situation and help, and authorities shot him and killed him.
Oh my god.
And he had his gear on that had security written all over it. To me, that's what happens when you're a person of color, and even if you have, responsible gun ownership, or you're even part of the authority to some degree. Like,
So, I
I would not feel comfortable, like, if I were somebody who was like security or an off-duty officer or somebody who still kind of had a degree of authority. I would not feel comfortable even trying to help and step into these situations, because I feel like there would just be some people who would assume that you are part of the problem.
Well, okay, so Asha Rengappa on Twitter did this like long tweet and cited a bunch of stuff about people's implicit bias and how police are taught to act before not react. So
Yeah.
and then plus the implicit bias, they've got an implicit bias towards black and brown people. It's just implicit.
Yeah.
So she was talking about how that cops themselves need to be like retrained, like, and you can like redo it. You can retrain people's brains to not act, to not have this bias. And she was recommending like meditation and things like that. I don't know how you would actually do it, or if that's effective. I'm sure it would. It'd help. I mean, it can't hurt.
It can't hurt. Like, that is, to me, that is often something you can apply. Is it can't hurt. There are so many things that people go, no, we don't want to do that. What difference would it make? And it's like, sometimes you just say, well, it can't hurt. Like, there's the 1 in 100 chance it'll actually do some like noticeable good.
Yeah.
But it's
so.
I mean, but it's almost
then.
impossible. Yeah, it's almost impossible that it would do some harm. That's my stance on changing the language when they talk about extending rights for women, and they say, well, instead of saying man and everything, why not actually make it more gender neutral pronouns? And people go, but it's our sacred document. We can't change the language. When it was written, they actually did mean all people. We just have to interpret it that way. And it's like, yeah, whatever you want to, whatever helps you sleep at night. But what actually harm does it do to just make the pronouns gender neutral?
To rewrite
Nothing.
it, or like
whatever they have to do to amend it, but to make it so that the rights are not just saying he, him, man, but actually saying they, them, the collective they, where it would, and then that also covers not just saying man, woman, but anybody in between making any kind of change, they are still covered by that protection. The thing is that the people who argue against that, what they really want is they want to be able to, anytime down the line, say, well, the wording says man, so it only applies to men. But right now, it's, oh, no. When it was written, women had no right. So, of course, it only meant men. Like, don't blatantly lie to people like that. We know that when the forefathers wrote things like the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and all these, documents that we hold so sacred, the only people who mattered were white men. We can just accept that. It's okay. It was a different time, but we were supposed to be better than that. So I always get annoyed when people go, but man applied to everybody. Actually, no, contextually, in the time period that was written, that was not the case. We have tried to make sure that it is interpreted that way. But whenever any of you want to do something very specific and you don't want to let women have a say in it, that'll go back to only applying to men. Now you'll get a lot of fight for it. There'll be a decent number of people who will be good and will say, no, this applies to everybody. But there'll be those sticklers who will act like you gotta read the words for what they are. And the word is man, the word is male, the word is him, he, not they. And, you know, those flip floppers are just the worst because yeah, they want to trick people into believing that it's like, oh no, we won't do anything awful like that. And they're totally setting themselves up to be able to do something awful like. But yeah, so I mean that's going back. That's why I like the more that approach of what harm would it do. So yeah, police are so stressed. Police are now, I mean,
well, they're given all the crap work to do.
They're given all the crap work to do, but also it is debatable how much they just anticipate and are anxious about something violent happening.
Yeah,
versus
they're trained to it.
But I mean, versus how often nowadays they actually are in danger. Like there are a lot of people who are being shot and killed who offer no threat.
Cops, like 6 cops just got killed or shot in Philly. Like.
yes, but I mean, there are so many people who are being shot and killed by cops who offered no threat to them.
Yes, that too.
People being shot in the back, like that's almost rule number 1. Like if you're a civilian and you shoot somebody in the back, you are almost guaranteed to be seen as in the wrong, like first-degree murder, like not manslaughter, because their back was turned to you. But for a cop, they just kind of have to argue, well, yes, once I pulled my weapon, they were scared and they turned away, but they were threatening me, and that's why I did it in the first place, and it was a split second decision. And it's like, no, once somebody is like running away from you, once their back is turned to you, once they disengage, if you harm them, it calls into question you. It really becomes sketchy as to what were they doing before they turned their back to you.
Well, now we have cameras, body cameras. And even in those situations, like they end up not working. Like, oh, I turned it off.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, they should not be able to turn them off.
Yeah.
They should just be constant.
We lost the footage.
Yeah, no. I would say, I would put in stipulations like, hey, if your camera has any issues working, quotation marks, or is obstructed, or you don't maintain your records and you lose footage, then you're like on probation. No questions asked. And then let them actually uphold their cams and be responsible for that stuff. Because I mean, sometimes I sit at work and I kind of think like, wow, what if I didn't know somebody was watching me right now? Like, what if I didn't know that, like, there's a camera up in the light and my boss or somebody actually once in a while checks to see, like, productivity or something like that. That makes me sound really paranoid. I'm not really paranoid. It's just like a thought, like, I know there are some jobs where you are being monitored.
Yeah, that's me. That's my job.
Like, did they tell you that?
No, but I mean, like, I mean, you know, I mean, well, yeah, they kind of do. I mean, yeah, use federal systems. They tell you.
I mean, like on the computer, yeah. My job has a system where they track what you use your computer for. But I'm like thinking like security cameras. Like
Oh,
as far as I know, there's no security cameras. But I think once in a while, I think like, like especially like
yeah, we have
I don't
security
know,
cameras.
like sometimes when I'm like I itch my nose or something like that, and I think, oh man, what if there's a camera watching me? And but then I think like seriously, like that's not the kind of situation you really want to be in. But to me, like I would just want to know, and then it's not that the camera would make me like behave in a more upstanding
But you
way.
want to know if you're being recorded, yeah, or watched.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course,
And
of
the
course.
and the one thing that they have is that it's like, hey, you have a body cam. And the body cam, it should, like for them, should be just as much to protect them
Yeah,
as it is to protect other people. Like
yes,
if somebody tries to claim they did something that they did not do, body cam. Now
yeah.
if they try and get away with something, body cam. Like this is again going back to that statement. What harm does it do? It really actually doesn't do any harm for somebody who is like an on duty cop. Now, I would not want that thing like there while I'm sitting at my desk, but
Or
if
in the
I'm out,
bathroom, yeah.
yeah, but it's like if I'm on
Interacting,
duty
yeah.
and on the street, yeah, like that is just, it is an unfortunate need because no, we should be able to trust our law enforcement more than a lot of people. Just like our doctors, just like, first responders. Like, you don't want to hear about those people violating somebody else's rights because those jobs come with a level of respect and trust because we need them in our
Color
most
of law.
well they are there for our most vulnerable moment.
Yeah,
Law enforcement are there when we are in danger. Firefighters when damage is being done to our property or we're at risk of dying. First responders, something medically wrong has happened, injury has happened. Doctors, we have some kind of you know diagnosis or something that we're trying to get help for. Nurses are the same way. It's like these are jobs, and most of them come with a level of license or certification that says I am going to I'm going to be a little bit better, a little bit more above grade because you are trusting me in your most vulnerable
well, yeah. You have a
situation.
responsibility. Yeah,
Um So for anybody who feels like screw body cams, I think that's already telling of them.
yeah.
And and yeah, I just I don't know. I just feel like they are under a lot of stress. They do. There's like this buildup of them being set up to be the victims, and then you do now have a lot of hostility. Like there are a lot of people who do feel hostility towards law enforcement because of all these past cases. It's
Yep.
like it's just like I wish I knew or even just had deeper thoughts on how to like diffuse that because right now it is just a back and forth building up of tension. And then you have crazy guys that will shoot at the cops, but chances are, I mean, I don't know anything about that guy, but I doubt he's the kind of guy that the cop would initially be concerned about. Like, just off of looking at him.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, okay. I just think that the part of the reason why the cops are amped up is because there's so many guns out there. And if we start addressing the gun issue, we can start addressing the cop issue. We need to address both of them.
Yeah.
But and why are cops trained to be like this? Because there's a lot of guns out there. That's why. If there weren't so many guns, they wouldn't have to be like that.
Yeah.
Well, at least part of it.
And the thing is when I hear the statistics of how, guns outnumber people in this country, I thought about it and I went, oh, well, yeah. Like, I think I've known like 3 people who own guns, and it's not like they own one gun. Like, one of them, I think he owns like 5 guns.
Yeah.
Like, so there's that one person who owns like 5 guns, and he's like, ex-military, which does not necessarily, I know a lot of people will throw that out as though it's like, but to me, granted, he never served like overseas. Like, he just went through training and he was always here in reserve. So it's not the same as like somebody who's actually gone into combat. But to me, to just be like, oh, ex-military, so that excuses why they have all these weapons here. No. And especially depending on what they've been through, I feel like maybe they should go through an evaluation. Because sure, they might have some PTSD that makes them feel anxious and nervous and concerned about their safety, and then a lot of things that'll just call them back. But then I would say, give them tasers. Like, if they're concerned about security, give them non-lethal weapons and not let them just keep their firearms because that's a part of their life up to that point. Because I don't want somebody who's like dealing with a lot of trauma to necessarily have easy access to a firearm. Just like if I know somebody who's severely depressed, I kind of knew a situation like this where it was the husband who had firearms, but the wife had a lot of just trauma and a lot of emotional and mental just issues. And when he was gone for prolonged periods of time, the family would actually relocate his firearms. And I'm just thinking, just because he's home doesn't mean that you're pointing out that there is an issue. Just because he's home, it doesn't mean that issue doesn't still exist. She should not be around those firearms. And everybody that I, told that to kind of told me to mind my own business. Which, again, like, that might be a situation where, I should have called the authorities. But considering I was so far removed from the situation, I wasn't even sure what that would come down to. And then you would have like her friends, her family saying that I was the one like overreacting or doing something wrong. They're not together anymore. But I just always think about that, where it's like, sure, you look at him and you think, oh, it's cool that he has, he just has them as a hobby. He goes out once in a while. He's former military. It's fine. But no, like, she still has issues, and people are aware of it, that they're scared like she'll hurt herself or maybe hurt somebody else, but mostly they were concerned that she might hurt herself. Then maybe you need to give up that hobby.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay, so I, yeah, I don't know. I think I look at things further back. That's too close for me. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. No,
I
no,
can't.
no. I
That's way too
know.
close. I can't.
Those are like the little arguments that people try to make. It's like, oh, well, these people are trained. These people are
Yeah, but
responsible. It's like,
okay. So
it's not.
that's another point about the whole firearm thing, is that the firearm thing looks different depending on on which side you're on, or who you're talking to. So
Mhm.
on Twitter I saw, I don't know if you saw the same optical illusion, but it was on Twitter and it was amazing. Um, from one side you're looking at the sculpture and it's a square. Then as you turn around it, like go 180 degrees, you see that it's not a square at all. It's a piece of rectangular, or a piece of metal bent in a fancy way with paint on certain parts. And then when you get around to the 180th degree angle all the way around, the square that you were looking at, the red square that you were looking at, now has become a blue circle.
I I don't think I've seen that specific one, but I've seen optical illusions like that.
So yeah, um, the thing when you see it from the side perspective is just bent metal. It's none of them, unless you stand in those specific points,
Mhm.
and that's what you see, and then you can say with true that what you see. Um, so I use that to say that gun violence is the same thing.
Yeah.
You point to gun violence or the number of people who are dead, and white people will say, well, look how many. We're not going to look at suicides. We're only going to look at crimes. And look, not very many people died in like crimes like that, or like the with assault rifles or whatever. They're not using crimes. So what they do is they lie with numbers. They only narrow it down to assault rifles, not handguns, and
They yeah, they
they don't talk about suicides. But that's the number one killer of people, of white people with firearms, is suicide. 66%
yeah.
of their deaths with firearms is suicide. So that by them ignoring it, they try not to look at the problem. They try to say that it's a personal problem, that you shouldn't look at it. And
Well, and
like,
that's the thing, is they try and pinpoint the statistic that suits their argument.
yeah,
But it's because it is a related statistic, people don't question, well, what is the information that you're leaving out? When you focus on, well, how often have we even had these mass shootings? Well, mass shootings are not they're the biggest, the most shocking, the most impactful issue probably, but they're not the only issue. Um, and sadly, for us to even be looking at gun regulation because there is a mass shooting is also pretty disrespectful, because it shouldn't come down to that. It there
what do
should
you mean?
As far as like, we should not just be like, well, this person shot up a store, let's talk about gun regulation. I think gun regulation should always be a discussion until something's actually done about
Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't have to
Um.
wait for the next shooting to talk about it,
Yeah.
because it's
And
gonna
and
happen. So
and I
let's do
know.
something before it happens.
I
and
mean,
maybe we can prevent the next one.
and I know that people, people always bring it up, but it's the truth that there's always the people who don't want to do anything different, that say, "But this is a time to mourn," and
Oh
then
yeah,
there's
the
people
this is
who
not the
want,
right time. Yeah, forget those
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Forget them. Yeah.
Oh gosh, sorry, I was just thinking about, and I forget her last name, but Heather, I believe is her first name, the girl that was killed in
Heather
Charlottesville.
Heyer.
Hayer, yes. I saw a thing recently with her mom, and it just broke my heart, because her mom was talking about all this hate, and it, she, as I put in a comment on the video I was watching, she was way more eloquent than my mom would be if somebody had, you know, done that to me. I don't know how my mom would react, but I don't think she would. I don't think she'd be looking to keep things civil, really. um, but she was talking about. I think they were asking her post the shootings, um, and she just mentioned all the hate, and especially with like Tucker Carlson saying that white supremacy is a myth, is false, that does not
Yeah, he
exist.
denies it. Yeah, of course that Nazi is gonna deny it. Nazis never ever own up to it. They never do. Not in public.
Which I'm always like, I don't get it. You don't you guys feel comfortable enough? Isn't enough of your leadership in favor of what you're doing that you feel comfortable coming out about how you actually feel?
Yeah, right.
Like,
Like
part of
Trump
me goes
emboldens them. That's
if
why they're a
you
propaganda network. Fox is a propaganda network. They're like it's a bunch of crap. I've watched like some of their segments and it's horrible how much they lie.
like if you have enough consciousness to realize, oh, I can't let the general public know this, then how can you actually continue? I don't know. Like, there's a level of shame where you're like, but I'm fine, but I feel shame because these people don't understand me. But to me, you can't really do that with something like being a Nazi or being a nationalist, because it's like you either truly believe, and you would think that they'd be proud of it, and you'd think that they'd feel enough support out there the way that things are right now, um that they would just say it, versus these people who do everything up to the point of actually announcing it, which to me means that they still realize, well, this isn't a good thing, this is a bad thing. In which case I always go, well, then why are you still doing it? Like, if you have enough awareness that what you are going for is bad, is negative, is going to get you negativity, how are you still going for it? I don't get it. I just don't get it. And especially right now, you'd think that they would just be like, I mean, because there are some people out there, obviously, who will outright tell you, yeah, I think white people are superior.
Those are
Um,
Nazis.
yeah,
We call those people Nazis.
but that's what I mean. Like, I don't understand the Nazi who isn't willing to admit it, I guess.
No, because there's shame, right? He's not gonna admit it to you. Right? Like, remember, the Nazi doesn't think he's bad.
Oh, I know that, but then
So
there are still those who don't think that they're bad. that will still admit it.
That they're bad or that they're Nazis?
That they're Nazis.
No, only when they know that you're on board with them.
Mm-mm. No, I mean, I'm talking like, yes, they are the most extreme, but I just feel like if you really believe in what you're pushing, then how do you not just come out and admit it? Um, I've seen it where there's like, not that I want to remember his name, but there's a politician down in the South who um the black man actually interviewed him, uh and he was like, oh no, I can totally sit here and have lunch with you, that's fine, you seem like a nice enough gentleman, um but I don't think you should live in my state. uh I would never want you to be involved with anybody in my family. I don't even want you on the property, which is why we're meeting here for lunch. I mean, just he was like, no, 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 you could. I mean, I don't want to kill you or anything. You can go live happily somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't want to kill you yet.
I mean, that's what I was kind of feeling. I was like really scared for the interviewer. I'm like, are you sure you want to be doing this? How much insurance does this network have on you? Um,
So
but
okay, wait. So what other? I mean, what happened recently? That's what I'm like. Is there anything recent that you can like talk about? Like Hong
um,
Kong. Hong Kong. What's going on in Hong Kong right now?
I'm I'm still kind of confused about Hong Kong. I mean, I know why it's happening. I'm I'm just confused as to what it could lead to.
Okay, well,
Um,
yeah. I mean, like that was my worry that it's gonna be another Tiananmen Square.
yeah,
They've
I
got
know.
like
And it's about, and it's about the whole when there's somebody is, found guilty, the whole why am I blanking on the word? But as far as like sending them out of the country, or how they basically handle their conviction, um but
uh Hong Kong.
I is, am I getting
So
that
Hong
one
Kong,
confused?
the people are protesting
Yeah.
because China is trying to assert more and more control.
Okay,
Oh,
the one thing that I heard a lot of focus put on was China trying to be able to, and the problem is I'm forgetting the word, and it's a really key word, but it's where
extradite.
they extradite, yes. That was one of the news that I was hearing. That was one of them that they were really focused on, was the extraditing
Yeah,
power.
so that to let China extradite people from Hong Kong to mainland China.
Yeah.
But that's just really a pretense because I was reading a Reddit comment and I don't
Mm-hmm.
have the rest of it. But really it's just like this has been a tension that's been simmering for a long time
Oh,
between
almost
China
any.
and Hong Kong
I
because yeah,
mean, yeah, pretty much anything with China, Hong Kong, and
Taiwan.
I was gonna say, be very sensitive about mentioning Taiwan. Like anything there. Like growing up, I was always very confused about the separation of Hong Kong from China. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
So
this really
well, Hong Kong
does
from
bring it
China,
up
but
full boil.
like and China from Taiwan.
Well, I understood Taiwan a little bit better than I did Hong Kong. I
Yeah.
was just always like, why is Hong Kong like basically smack dab in the middle of China, but it's not technically part of China?
Yeah.
That always confused me as a kid. But yeah, so I don't know. I feel a lot of concern that the more pushback on China, not saying that it shouldn't happen, but just that in general, the world, and without us actually really having a good, solid UN, I think that's what makes these things harder. But
Well,
so
the
without,
U.S. is totally given. I mean, like with Trump at the helm, the U.S. has
yeah,
lost all its soft power. It doesn't use
that
it. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean. Because I was going to say the pushback that I'm talking about would only work, I think, with the UN. I don't think like the US can
By
just push
itself,
back on.
no.
Yeah, and I don't think like the EU or anybody like this is an instance where I feel like it would be the UN or nothing.
Yeah.
Pushing back on China at this point, I feel anybody just sitting there going, we disagree with what China is doing, I think it's only going to make China want to exert more power. Like, just kind of, it's almost like reverse psychology where China feels like when anybody comes around and tries to be like, you shouldn't be doing
Well,
that.
they're
That's
already.
not right.
Yeah, they're already oppressing all those Muslims, like in the northeast.
Yeah.
I can't say their name because I haven't heard it. Like Uyghurs or something. I don't know how you say it.
I've seen it written, but I haven't heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like they want to be, and I mean, they're really kind of there, but they want to be a superpower, but they have not developed the humanitarian areas of their government. So,
well, they just think differently than we do about a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
terribly corrupt.
there's-
It's total corruption. Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
lot of
I
corruption
mean,
up there.
but you say think differently, and I mean, like, we think differently than a lot of the European nations. But right now, us and or even a better example would be, we think a little differently on things than Canada. But
Yeah.
most people would kind of look at us in Canada and be like, they're similar enough. Unless I'm really like concerned about my health care, then I'm gonna go Canada, of course. But but to me, like, thinking differently, like, really marginalizes, like, China still has a lot of things to work on as far as the way that they treat their citizens.
Of course, but I mean, we're not going to tell them that.
Well, that's the thing, is, yeah, that's why I say it comes back to, we need a reinstated UN.
Well,
because
yeah, it needs to be a worldwide effort. I agree, but yeah,
I mean,
we're in
also,
a bad position right now. I mean, like, I saw a tweet, I agree with it, that says that we're in a kind of new world war right now, and we've been in it for a while. An information war.
Yeah, information war, because it's so much easier to make fake things,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel it's usually the truth that gets pointed at and told that's the lie, because usually the fake stuff is actually harmless. It's like, haha, look at this funny picture I made that
No,
looks
not
pretty
always.
realistic.
Like,
Not always.
No, because like right now, right? So right now they're spreading. There's a meme being spread that says that Antifa is going to dress up like a Proud Boy and cause a fight. And so that way they can that will give the Proud Boys license. Well, it doesn't give them license, but now they have a cover story. They'll say, "Oh, it wasn't us. It was the Proud Boy. It wasn't us. That guy was Antifa." So that's how they're doing their
that's
information warfare.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just thinking like, I'm thinking things that kind of get into a visually scarier domain, where you have like the ability to start making videos that look like people saying things,
Well, yeah,
and it
they already
looks
have
like
deep
them.
fakes.
That's what I'm talking about. And I feel like people aren't going there yet, but obviously we know the potential to go there. But what it really is coming down to is the truth is being pointed at and people are being told that's a lie, that's fake, because there's enough fake stuff around that people go, well, I guess, yeah, then I guess no matter how real it looks to me, that must be fake. And so it's really hard to distinguish the real from the fake, and people don't want to look deeper
Well,
because
they don't.
there are ways to
I
figure
know,
out
but
what's
who's
real
got
and what's
time for
fake.
that noise, dude? I've like,
Well,
it's not that people
a
don't
lot of
want to. It's
things,
that they don't have time. I mean,
no,
they're
they don't have
working
time.
and they've got kids to look after, and
But the
and then they
media,
gotta
I
clean up the
mean,
house and so much
but
stuff. You don't have
yeah,
time to go suss out the truth like you're
but
suggesting.
that's what the yeah, but that's no. I'm not saying that it's down to the individual person to do that. That's honestly what our journalists should be concerned with instead of just
Well,
spreading the propaganda.
but no, but a lot
But
of them are. Like, there's a lot of good journalists out there who do
there are,
pump
and I
out good
follow some of them.
information.
But I'm saying the ones that really hit the general public, because
What?
typically, like your general news, your CNN, your Fox,
Yeah,
like
I mean,
those are the ones that most people watch, and they're going to get a lot of
yeah, so that's the
skewed
problem, right?
information from it.
Fox is
Yeah,
a propaganda network.
but it's not just Fox.
Other networks have problems, yeah, but they're not nearly as bad as Fox. Fox is
They're
totally.
getting there though. There are some like just recently, CNN was talking about Bernie and talking about some of his. I think they were talking about cost of the Medicare for all, and they were saying something. I'd have to pull it up, but basically they were saying something about one of his policies that he's proposing, and somebody was able to immediately pull up something that they posted like earlier this year where they said the exact opposite of what they were arguing against Bernie. And it's like, thank goodness for being able to go back into their history and such, but it's like, why you're even going against something you said earlier this year? And you can't just blame that on a different writer. You obviously are
You know what?
pushing an agenda.
All of this I can't do anything with. Like, I don't know what to say about it. Like, okay. That doesn't. So my point stands that Fox News is untrustworthy. It's a propaganda network. Mainstream media is not perfect, but it's not. It's a lot better than Fox News. Fox News has an agenda that it's trying to set.
Yeah, and them being the worst does not negate when other stations are also pushing propaganda.
Yeah, corporate. Yeah, a lot of them are pro corporation. So
yeah,
so you'll have that kind of slant on it, right? But then again, right, like there's some are more objective than others, like, and you can just see it. And when like you'll have three stations.
The lesser of evils.
You'll have 3 stations saying the top news story is Epstein was arrested, and Fox News would be talking about Hillary. Or 3 stories about how Trump properties were found to be fraudulent, and so they were dissolved or whatever. And then Fox News will have a story about Joe Biden. Like, I mean, you can see it, right? It's not. I'm not just talking like both sides are the same, because they're not. They're not the same.
Yeah, but I think so. Getting a little, I don't know. I guess you could kind of say meta here. I'm guessing people who listen to you already know how bad Fox is, but it's important to point out when other stations are, because if you kind of paint them as being better, then sometimes people don't think they are fallible too. That they are also purposely,
of course, they're fallible,
but purposely making false statements or purposely skewing their news against like a specific candidate or trying to mold where people direct their attention because of their own politics, because of their own bias, versus just giving the straight facts. Because I think people are kind of, they either like Fox or they don't like Fox. I don't think you have to convince people one way or the other. But I don't think you have to convince people one way or the other.
There's two different realities. there's the reality that's broadcast and by the news, the mainstream media, the mainstream reality, and then there's this alternative reality that's broadcast by the right wing, and they're totally separate. They don't overlap. The Overton the Venn diagram has 0 places where they overlap. They're talking about two entirely separate things.
So would you rather focus on the whole day of lies that Fox gives you, or the misdirection that Fox gives you, or would you rather point out like the 5 examples in which like CNN lies to people?
No, I'd rather talk about what's going on.
Yeah, but I'm saying that is so hard to get from anybody anymore.
No, I mean, we're doing it. But the thing is that
But then we still have to pull from sources, and
but our sources are
in Twitter, and those aren't the things we should do. I mean, we do look at those things, but those shouldn't have to be where we start to get a real picture.
No, I just cited examples. I didn't use those as primary sources. I'm referencing like actual like news stories. That's common knowledge that we're talking about. Like, Trump announced that his labor board would allow discrimination again. Like, that's just, there's no source on that. There's spin, you can spin it, but like, how are you gonna spin that? Well, Fox will spin it to sound like it, so it's great. And the mainstream media will be pretty neutral about it. But we know it's horrible.
Or people will cut the video to change the order and the context in which he said it. I mean, that's the thing. Because even those sources that more lean left and people feel a little more trustworthy towards have sometimes like cut a video short so that it sounds differently when you only get half of the statement. Yeah.
I'm not saying anyone's perfect.
No, we're definitely not saying anyone's perfect. It's just that.
But that's what I'm saying.
I think there's more to gain from saying, hey, this source that I do like following, I do want to get my information from, needs to stop using these little tactics and should hold themselves to a higher standard.
All right. So, what about some things that? What are some? Okay. But you don't have anything specific to point to, so I don't know what to talk about. You're just saying there's these things out there that they're doing, and I don't like it. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do, man. But I'm not gonna discredit. But the thing is, I'm not gonna discredit. I mean, I said what I said. Like, they're not perfect, but they're better. But they're better than Fox.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say.
No, that's totally.
So yeah, like.
So you're bringing up the labor board.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that happened. Trump changed it so that there was an Obama regulation that made it so that it was illegal for contractors to discriminate against employees. It was Obama regulation.
So I saw a headline, but what did he actually change?
I don't know if it went through. I have to read the story again.
Or
it's just going to rescind it. It's going to say that you can. Saying you can discriminate based on a bunch of random stuff.
So what was the regulation preventing?
It prevented contractors from discriminating against or firing employees based on their sexual orientation and other stuff like that. Before they could. And now they were explicitly said you can't. And Trump reversed that. Trump said, no, go ahead, you can.
Is this on a federal level or is
Yeah,
this...
federal level. So not the federal government itself, but I think the contractors. You know, I mean, I can look it up real quick, but like, there's just like tons of stuff going on.
Because I also understand that there's like contractor boards on the state level. So while that is terrible, I wonder if there would still be some, protection per state. Because there's an Oregon contractors board.
Yeah, so I was looking up Twitter to find something, and the first thing I see is Church of Scientology. Nothing?
As far as like my views on Scientology?
Yeah.
No, I really just find it weird, and I mean, I think they have a lot of people who believe in them that are fairly influential. So I mean, that's always concerning, but I'm not one to talk about religion because I don't necessarily subscribe to anything.
Yeah, I don't think they're a religion. I think they're like a bad crime syndicate.
You don't have to think that they are. I think they did earn their classification as a religion, though. I mean, so like I don't agree with them getting that, but I think to the government, I think they did. I think they
they proved it to the government to get the tax-free status. That's what they're But I mean,
for all their celebrities.
But they're not really. Yeah, they're not really. I don't think they're really a religion. It's more like a brainwashing cult to get money.
I mean, so I was having a discussion earlier about, or somebody had listed off how hate and things like racism build up off of shame. It's actually there's a tweet, and I responded to it, and I should just like forward it to you or something. But this person was making a really great point about how young men, specifically white men, are, when they're boys, they are often in the cycle of people will share things with them, teach things to them with the note or the warning that's like, well, people are going to make you feel bad about this, but this is okay, this is right, this is how it should be. And then they'll go through their life, they'll repeat things, or they'll laugh at things that are that are inappropriate, and people will shame them about it. It creates this cycle of reinforcement that yes, what they think or feel or found funny or whatever, whether it's sexism, racism, whatever bigotry, whatever source of hate is being pushed on them, they will find that they are getting shamed for it, that they are getting hate for it, and they will retreat back into the community, into the groups that are also teaching that to them, because they're the ones who turn around and are like, well, we accept you. Well, we know that you're not bad. And it becomes a cycle of shame, and the people who are actually formulating that hate and that shame will present themselves as the liberators from that shame and indoctrinate them. To me, that's indoctrination across the board, whatever it is. It doesn't necessarily mean that the group is always bad or malicious, because you can even just have a spiritual group, but they probably are kind of coming from the same tactic, but just without the malicious.
I don't know. I was raised Catholic, but the thing is, I wasn't forced. It was just the way things always were. I mean, I just thought that was the way everyone did it. At first, I thought everyone was like this, and then I was like, oh, not everyone's like this. Then I'm like,
but being raised in a family with a religion is different than, say, growing up and meeting people and them trying to convert you.
No, but it's often your own family that does it, and then plus this conversion stuff happens online now. That's where it happens.
Yeah, but also, you're giving Catholic as an example. I mean, the joke is that Catholicism is nothing but shame.
Or guilt.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Shame and guilt. Guilt is what you feel. Shame is what's being imposed on you.
Yeah, so it's guilt. Catholic is guilt, not shame. I guess there can be shame, but it's not a guilt.
I think that's just splitting hairs. It's basically the same thing. What do you think is different between shame and guilt?
Guilt is self-imposed, and shame is external. So,
but that's what I was saying. Is shame is like what somebody else is putting on you.
Yeah, it's external.
Guilt is your response to them.
No, I don't know your response.
Treating you with shame.
No, shame and guilt are different. Right? No, you don't feel guilt because people shaming you. You feel shame, which is different than guilt. Guilt is something on inside. When you shame someone, it's not the same thing as giving them a guilt trip.
I think there are instances where it is definitely shame and definitely guilt, but I think they are like two sides of the same coin. They're about
I don't think guilt needs to have a social component.
I mean, if you hurt somebody and they respond by like crying or complaining,
and you don't care. No. What if you don't care? You don't care. You're like, whatever. But then someone else comes along and says, oh, look what you did. You're a bad person. Look at you. And they point at you and they're like, look at you. Bad you. Bad you. Shame, Sabrina. Shame, Sabrina. And everyone else comes around you and points and you go, shame. And then now you don't feel bad about hurting the kid, but you feel bad that everyone is looking at you. So guilt is when, like, you hit the kid and you're like, poof, and the kid's like, and he's crying. You're like, yeah, that's right. And then later on that night, you're laying there and you're thinking about when you're a little kid.
I think you're dividing them up based on like morality.
No, not morality, because then you go home and then at night you're laying there at night trying to go to bed. And you're like, oh, I remember when I was a kid, and I remember when other kids beat me up. That wasn't very nice. Oh, and I feel bad because like that kid, he was just trying to be good, and I punched him, made him feel bad. Oh, and then so yeah, it doesn't come from outside. It comes from you. And so you go back to wherever it was that you saw the kid, and now everyone's walking around like nothing's going on, but the kid's afraid of you. So no one knows what you did. No one's gonna get you, but you know.
The one that you punched.
Yeah, the one that you punched. He knows and he sees, but he's not gonna tell. But he's afraid of you. He looks at you funny, because he's afraid. He flinches. So
Um,
no one else knows, but you and the kid know, and then you feel like really bad. That's guilt. That comes from inside, not from outside. That's totally different than
um,
shame.
I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree. I'm gonna look them up, in fact, because I'm betting that their definitions are really similar.
No way. No way.
I have to look them
Look
up.
it up. Go ahead. Do it. Do it.
So, shame and guilt. So, shame, a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. Your description of guilt sounds more like that definition of shame.
Yeah.
And guilt, the fact of having committed a specific or implied offense or crime.
Not that one.
Like,
Not that meaning.
The verb make someone feel guilty, especially in order to induce them to do something. You're saying guilt is internal and personal, but the verb is saying you impose it on somebody else.
Yeah, because that's to render a verdict. Yeah, that's different. So
Yeah.
that's weird.
So,
So,
I mean,
they don't have a guilt. They don't have a guilty feeling. There's no. So they're saying there's no such thing as the guilt. I guess the guilty feeling is the shame feeling.
So I mean, there's guilt, the emotion. Guilt is a cognitive or an emotional experience that occurs when a person believes or realizes, accurately or not, that they have compromised their own. I have to expand it. Compromise their own standards of conduct or have violated a universal moral standard and bear significant responsibility for that violation. Guilt is closely related to the concept of remorse.
Ah, see? There you go. So shame and guilt are different.
To a degree, yeah. But your description
Remorse.
of guilt But your description of guilt was very close to the definition of shame.
Yeah, you're right.
A painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior.
No, not by the conscious. No. That's the thing. It's not the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior.
When it says
it's
consciousness,
the judgment.
it's
the judgment
when it
of
says
others.
consciousness, it's talking about you just being aware of it.
Yeah, but it's not. But that's the thing. I don't think shame has anything to do with.
And see, and so yeah, a verb of a person, action, or situation makes someone feel ashamed.
Like
They're it's like a pot and a kettle. They're very similar, but I think your upbringing has probably instilled a more precise idea, because I think that would probably be a very important and impactful concept for
Catholics?
Catholicism.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I don't know.
But they are related.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there's another one is shame is an unpleasant, self-conscious emotion typically associated with negative evaluation of the self, withdrawal motivations, and feelings of distress.
Yes. That was the guilt I was thinking of.
Yeah, but that's a definition for shame.
No.
So, I mean, they could be possibly synonyms of each other. But you were looking up something on Twitter.
Oh no, I was just looking randomly. I just saw Church of Scientology, and I'm
I
like,
thought you
yeah,
were
F
gonna
those
look up.
guys.
I thought you were gonna look up what what the language of the board's regulations were that he was trying to take away.
Labor Board discrimination. Okay, no, it hasn't done it yet. They want to. Department of Justice.
He wants to do a lot.
Yeah, Department of. Let's see. It was announced, I guess. Let's see. Press secretary on LGBTQ. Before the Supreme Court takes up the question of whether Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act prohibits employment discrimination based on gender identity or sexual orientation, the Justice Department wants the EEOC to reverse its Obama-era position that says it does. Quote, political leadership in the Solicitor General's office wants the EEOC on board to show the High Court that the Trump administration is now unified in the belief that Congress didn't have lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered workers in mind when it passed a federal workplace discrimination law more than 5 decades ago, sources said, reports Bloomberg Law.
Okay, so what I'm gathering from that, I'm already gonna say that is total crap, like what he's trying to do, because what I'm interpreting is that he is trying to make the argument we are going back to that whole, we want to take away language that covers more people, because then we can go back and say, well, it was already implied, we don't need it to be specific. And then once they take that option away, then they can go ahead and go, well, no, it specifically says this, so that does not imply coverage of these people. Because what it sounds like to me is that he's trying to say, tell me that it didn't already cover gay and lesbian and queer people. And if you can't prove it, then take away what Obama did, because we'll just say it did. But then once they take away the things that were passed during Obama, then they can just go back and say, well, it doesn't explicitly say that it covers, the queer population.
Yeah. There's nothing pointing to it. Yeah, because you took away the Obama regulation. So now there's nothing pointing to it.
That is disgusting.
Yeah.
That is disgusting.
That's why I can't...
Because that is blatantly what I was just talking about with the whole, what does it hurt? What does leaving the regulations that were put in place during Obama's administration, what does it hurt to leave those in place?
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt anybody. Why are you even focused on this? I would love somebody to, I know he always cuts off journalists and things like that, but I would just love somebody to go, why are you even wasting our time with this?
Look,
hey,
all right,
hey,
hold on. Wait. We've been going for almost 2 hours. So I'm going to stop this broadcast for the moment, and we can continue our discussion. But let me stop the broadcast. All right, America, thank you for hanging out and listening to our discussion. You watched me make a new rail line in the nether to a new cool place. That's nice. And yeah, we discussed a lot of stuff. So cool. I'll do my show on Sunday as per normal, and I'll check you out then. Thank you, Roguish Bard, for hanging out with me and having this awesome discussion.
And arguing.
Well, we weren't really arguing, we were discussing.
Yes.
And all right, then maybe you'll be back for another episode in the future. We'll see. Okay. Peace out, America. Ciao. Ciao bella.